today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of her 140-pound showdown with reigning undisputed champion Chantel Cameron, Katie Taylor says she loves training in the middle of nowhere to escape the chaos and the madness. Some would call it madness that she's decided to fight Chantel Cameron when she could have fought almost anybody for her big homecoming. Katie Taylor could have picked almost anyone and sold it out because the attraction really is her homecoming. She decided to take it a step further, and she told BoxingScene.com, "I definitely think it's important to get yourself out of the chaos and the madness of so many people wanting to drag you everywhere back home. The peace and quiet out here is amazing, and it's a great environment for training, and it's one of the reasons I've loved this place so much. There is nothing to do over here other than train. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's a superb place to focus on the actual fight and to get a bit of headspace." Taylor has been doing her training camps in Connecticut ever since she turned pro in 2016 after initially reaching out to Coach Ross Emanate.
Did I say that right?
Chantel Cameron has wanted this fight for a very long time, and I've spoken to Chantel on a number of occasions. Chantel, who was always very skeptical as to whether or not Katie Taylor would give her a shot. Now that shot is here, so as you can imagine, she's going to be revved up for this fight more so than she's ever been for any fight.
Any fight before it.
And that doesn't bode well for Katie Taylor's big homecoming. Emanate has since helped steer Taylor to the undisputed lightweight title over the course of her 22-fight professional career. She added, "Nowadays, this place feels like my home away from home. I miss my family from time to time, but it's very easy to keep in touch nowadays. But this is a great place, and I love it over here. I think it's the perfect spot for me. It suits my personality, the tranquility over here. You very rarely see even a car driving by. That's how quiet it is. There is some life outside, restaurants, cafes, and cinemas. There is stuff to do, and I have a great community of people here, so I have a great life outside of the gym too." That tranquility, that silence, will soon turn into the roar of Katie's adoring public in Ireland that have long awaited her homecoming. You have to understand that in 22 professional fights, Katie Taylor's never boxed in her native Ireland. This will be the first time, and she'll be facing a live one.
This is a very dangerous fight for Katie Taylor.
I don't think that enough people are making light of that Chantel Cameron stands a legitimate chance of spoiling Katie Taylor's big homecoming. Chantel Cameron, a boxer puncher with a mean streak. Several years younger than Katie Taylor and bigger. This fight is going down at Chantel's prescribed weight, not Katie's. Katie has very little advantages going into this fight outside of the edge and experience. Because she is smaller than Chantel Cameron, older than Chantel Cameron. She don't punch as hard.
Don't forget that Chantel Cameron's a body puncher.
She regularly mixes in body shots into her combinations. I've often talked about how Chantel Cameron's combinations are a bit more fluid. She shows more variety than Katie Taylor does.
Hooks upstairs, uppercuts up the middle, body shots.
Body shots that are particularly relevant to this conversation, this fight, because Katie Taylor's best weapon, believe it or not, it's not her hand speed. It's her foot speed. That's what got her out of trouble with Jessica McCaskill, with Christina Linardatu, with Amanda Serrano.
They put a lot of pressure on Katie. I think Chantel Cameron, I think she's going to put a lot of pressure on Katie.
Chantel Cameron, like Amanda Serrano, is a boxer puncher, but like Amanda Serrano, she's a boxer puncher with a mean streak. She's a boxer puncher that likes to lay into her opponents.
Different types of boxer punches. Some favor counter punching and some favor volume. The ones that favor volume, they almost border on pressure fighting.
They mimic the pressure fighter's aggression and volume, but because these are fundamentally sound fighters that are not limited to just coming forward.
That's what makes them boxer punches. They can box when they need to, punch when they need to.
The one rule of thumb is that boxer punchers are always one more than the other. Some boxer punchers are more boxer than puncher. Some boxer punchers are more puncher than boxer. Chantel, she's a puncher.
A body puncher at that.
If she targets Katie Taylor's body, she may take her legs away.
You take Katie Taylor's legs away, she's not going to be able to get away from you.
There is a distinct possibility that Chantel Cameron is going to beat Katie Taylor in Katie Taylor's home turf. And we know that Katie, she's too brave for her own good. She gets into those tear-ups needlessly, exchanging punches mid-range to inside when she ought to stay on the move.
At times doing so against bigger punchers than herself, like Delphine Persoon, like Amanda Serrano.
She can't afford to do that with Chantel Cameron.
But she might.
I'd wager that for this fight, Chantel Cameron is going to be the aggressor and Katie Taylor is going to be the defender, she's going to quickly find out that she can't hope to overpower Chantel Cameron or out-volume her.
She's got a box.
Chantel Cameron's combinations are more fluid than Katie's. She shows more variety, whereas Katie, she's got hand speed, but the combinations themselves can become monotonous.
I do think she's got hand speed and foot speed on Chantel, but a couple of shots getting in there might slow her down.
You also have to consider that best case scenario, Katie Taylor actually pulls it off. She becomes a 2-time undisputed champion at 2 weights. She'll have to fight Amanda Serrano after that.
Those are 2 very hard fights.
2 very strong fighters, 2 very strong punchers. That sequence of fights, that succession, could leave Katie Taylor tenderized.
That's why people say Katie Taylor's too brave for her own good.
That's what the reports indicate. That's what they seem to want to do. If Katie wins, she'll fight Amanda.
They'll reschedule it.
What happens if Katie loses? Does she run it back?
She's 37 years old, God bless her. She's not getting any younger.
There's a distinct possibility that Chantel Cameron could spoil Katie Taylor's big homecoming and any plans she has thereafter.
Look for this later on this month.
In men's heavyweight news, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Deontay Wilder has been arrested in Los Angeles, charged with possession of a concealed weapon.
Deontay Wilder's a multimillionaire. If he wanted to hire an armed bodyguard, he could have.
It's understandable that a public figure might prioritize their own safety when stepping out of their neck of the woods. You know, L.A., that's not his town.
He's from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, though. The laws in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, they're different than the laws in California.
According to a report by TMZ, former WBC world champion Deontay Wilder has been arrested in Los Angeles following a routine traffic stop. Law enforcement sources told the media outlet that Wilder was pulled over in Hollywood at around 1:15 a.m. after LAPD officers claimed his Rolls-Royce's windows were illegally tinted and his license plate was obstructed. During the stop, cops say they smelt an odor of burnt marijuana coming from his vehicle, so they searched his car.
Well, I thought reefer was legal in L.A.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what the legalities are, but I imagine that the laws for marijuana in California might be similar to the laws when it comes to alcohol. Yeah, you can smoke, just not behind the wheel.
Possession of marijuana might very well be legal in California, but firearms aren't.
Not without a permit, and it appears that Deontay Wilder didn't have one while he was in Hollywood.
Does this guy think he's Tupac now?
TMZ, per their sources, indicate that officers allegedly found weed and a 9mm handgun in the vehicle and put Wilder into custody. The 6'7" fighter was cooperative and friendly throughout the entire ordeal. The 37-year-old was booked on a charge of possession of a concealed weapon. Jail records show he bonded out at 6:34 a.m.
Deontay Wilder's got the same lifestyle obsession we see common among many athletes.
Because if he really felt the need for protection while he was out of town, he could have easily hired an armed bodyguard. He's a multi-millionaire, you understand.
Could have done that.
You tell yourself, well, that's too much of a hassle. What? And this is supposed to be better? Getting arrested? Getting booked? Having to post bail?
It's a lifestyle obsession with some guys. That's what it is.
Reminds me of Plaxico Burress, who played for the Giants way back when in 2009. They just won the Super Bowl. This genius shoots himself in the leg.
Shot himself in the leg and was sentenced to 2 years in prison on a firearms charge.
I'm not against anybody's right as an American to bear arms. I'm just saying that there's a time and a place, and for Deontay Wilder, Hollywood was not that place. And this situation reminds me of that one with Plaxico Burress, 2009.
I'm telling you that it's a lifestyle obsession with some guys.
They want to be gangsters. That's what they want to be. There is heavy talk that Wilder could potentially face former 2-time world champion Anthony Joshua at the end of the year in the Middle East. Another long-time option is a WBC final eliminator against former unified champion Andy Ruiz. But we all know that the Ruiz fight, it doesn't have the same traction that the Joshua fight has. And he has, in effect, jeopardized that with this gun charge, because we don't know how this is going to play out in the courts.
He wants to be John Rambo, this guy.
It's not a secret that Deontay Wilder has an affinity for rifles and firearms. He has a built-in shooting range into his compound in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But when you're not in Tuscaloosa, Alabama,
when you're in California,
the law for a concealed carry is different in California when compared to other states. California Penal Code 25400 PC, or the state's carrying a concealed weapon law, has made it a crime to carry a concealed weapon. This law applies whether the gun is inside your vehicle, like it was with Wilder, or on your person. There are exceptions to this very strict rule, though, and meeting the requirements for an exception would give you the chance to secure a concealed carry permit in California. However, it is also vital that you understand all the potential penalties and consequences for carrying a concealed weapon in the state. A violation of California Penal Code Section 25400 can be charged as either a misdemeanor or a felony, depending on several factors. If a violation is charged as a misdemeanor, some of the potential consequences include up to 1 year in jail, up to 1,000 in fines, and a summary probation. The judge will consider the following before deciding your penalty: any acts of violence you have committed in the past, your criminal history.
Many are already speculating that when this goes to court, they're going to give Wilder a slap on the wrist.
They'll hit him with a fine, some probation time, and he'll be free to take on Anthony Joshua later on this year. But because Deontay Wilder does have somewhat of a criminal history,
I mean, he's no predicate felon, but this ain't exactly his first run-in with the law either.
2013, Deontay Wilder had a domestic abuse charge levied against him, felony assault and strangulation.
It's not his first rodeo.
Could this prior history in any way impact Deontay Wilder's current situation involving a concealed weapon?
Because he ain't got a squeaky clean record. If this was a first offense, I could see.
It's a lifestyle obsession with some guys. That's what it is. Some of these athletes liken themselves and fancy themselves gangsters.
Criminals.
Some of them are, but Deontay Wilder, he has done fairly well for himself. He is a multi-millionaire. He could have easily avoided all of this by hiring an armed security guard while he was in California, that if this was really about safety.
Remember that you're in California. There's celebs all over the place. They've got armed bodyguards. Get yourself one, even if it's just for a day or two.
You say that's too much of a hassle. I say this is an even bigger hassle. Now you could be facing criminal charges and perhaps doing some time.
Could jeopardize the Anthony Joshua fight and all the money that Wilder stood to make.
Potentially, if your violation of PC 25400 is processed as a felony, the potential consequences can greatly increase. A felony conviction could mean up to 3 years in prison, up to 10,000 in fines, and formal probation.
You want to jeopardize your freedom while you're out of town playing Rambo?
You're a multimillionaire. You've got money. Hire yourself a bodyguard. Everybody in California's got one. All the celebs.
It's a common sense argument, but that's the problem. A lot of guys ain't got no common sense.
And for a lot of guys, this is a lifestyle choice. This isn't out of necessity.
You're not the head of the Gambino crime family, all right?
You don't have to be packing to set foot in California. You chose to do that because for you,
It's a lifestyle choice.
the way all those broads used to carry poodles in their bag
Perfect.
as accessories while they were on Beverly Hills. That's what this guy does with 9mm. That's what this guy does with firearms. It's not necessary.
Deontay Wilder himself, after bonding, took to his social media and stated, "I'd rather be safe than sorry." The end.
He's a public figure who's not in his town. I understand it.
What armed bodyguards are for?
You don't want to get robbed. You don't want to stick up kids rolling up to you. I get it.
What armed bodyguards are for?
You're always hearing Deontay Wilder talking about generational wealth. Well, why don't you use some of that generational wealth so you stay out of the clink? It's just a hassle that he don't need, given what he stands to make later on this year should the Saudis get that fight over the line, the one between him and Anthony.
It's unnecessary. It's just a hassle that he don't need.
And finally, in men's light heavyweight news per the WBC, Top Rank Boxing has won the rights to promote the mandatory light heavyweight fight between champion Artur Beterbiev and Callum Smith, with a winning bid of $2,115,000, outbidding Matchroom by a mere $15,000. Sean Palmer was present and calm already on Zoom.
That's a strange number.
$2,115,000. It's almost like somebody at Top Rank knew what Matchroom was going to bid. Eerily similar to what we saw when it came to the Jean Pascal versus Joshua Buatsi purse bid many months ago.
Except this is an even more marginal number. They beat him out by just $15,000, just $15,000. When it came to Joshua Buatsi and Jean Pascal's purse bid by way of the IBF many months ago, Lou DiBella ended up winning it by $100,000. $100,000 exactly.
And what you have to remember is it's a blind bid. You're not supposed to know what the other promotional outfit is was bidding. You don't know. You don't necessarily know how they price the fight versus how you price a fight. And yet Lou DiBella, who doesn't have a network deal,
Matchroom put in a bid of $875,000 for that fight. Lou DiBella put in a bid of $975,000 for that fight. $100,000 more exactly.
it's almost like Lou DiBella knew what Matchroom was going to bid and bid just enough, just a little more, that he'd ensure he won the rights to that fight.
Right.
The fight didn't happen.
It fell apart due to the anti-doping testing, some discrepancy between Team Buatsi and Team Pascal.
Better still, you get the gist of it. That was a funny-looking situation. This one is even more funny-looking because Top Rank beat out Matchroom by a marginal amount of money, a nominal amount. It's almost like they knew what Matchroom was going to bid, and they bid just enough that they could beat them.
What are you implying?
I'm implying there's a mole. I'm implying somebody's tipping these other promotional outfits off as to what Matchroom's going to bid whenever a purse bid situation ensues. Remember how it works.
Yeah.
You have to make a deposit in order to participate. You have to make a deposit worth 10% of your overall bid.
10%.
Or something like that, to the sanctioning body ordering the purse bid. In this instance, it was the WBC. So what if, hypothetically speaking, somebody at the WBC is willing to auction off that information?
What Matchroom's deposit is.
Matchroom bid $2.1 million. 10% of $2.1 million is $210,000.
What if you take that intel, relay it over to Top Rank so they know to bid more than $2.1 million based on a deposit?
If the deposit's $210,000 and that's intended to be 10% of the overall bid, that makes the overall bid $2.1 million. You relay that over to Top Rank for the right price.
You get to make yourself some money. They win the rights to the fight with your help.
Are you implying that the WBC is colluding with Matchroom's promotional rivals?
I'm not just implying it, I'm saying it. I'm saying it outright. These governing bodies seem to have unethical relationships with certain promotional outfits, depending on the situation.
You will notice that the same WBC that helped this purse bid is the same WBC that has barred Dmitry Bivol from fighting for any version of their titles at 168, at 175. Same WBC.
Yeah, he's a Matchroom guy.
You will notice in this purse bid involving another Matchroom guy, it's a very funny-looking winning bid, a funny-looking number by way of Top Rank. It's almost like the WBC told you what Eddie was going to bid.
It's a blind bid.
You beat them up by just $15,000. Boy, you must be clairvoyant or something, huh?
Yeah.
Psychic. It's like you knew what they were going to bid.
Doesn't surprise me.
Top Rank's got the rights to the fight. Maybe they do it in Montreal, Canada, where Artois is based out of.
We'll see.